Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you for attending this event, and I'd like to extend my special thank you to Walter and Michael for granting me the privilege to speak at the DConf this year, which I really hope is not the last. Let's see how it goes. Another special thanks to Walter for surrendering his opening spot. I was originally scheduled to speak on Thursday, which put me closer to the Ivy workshops that we're going to have on Friday. But on reflection, we thought there might be a lot of questions about Ivy for me, and based on Attila's experience last year, it's better for me to speak today so I don't have to spend 2 days saying, please wait for my talk. My name is Saeed, and as you see, the title of the speech is The Truth About D. But you also see there's a subtitle there that says a surprising way to increase the popularity of D language. To be honest, the subtitle was originally the main title, but Walter forced me to use that title, so now I have two things to talk about. Thanks, Walter. They're the same thing. But before I start, since this is the first talk, by a show of hands, how many of you really know each other well? You really, is there anyone new here, like completely new? First time? Okay, wonderful. All right, I have this very, very small activity we want to do. It's just fun to wake us up a little bit. 4 minutes. And I want you to turn to somebody next to you, behind you, in front of you. Just find one person and introduce yourself and answer this question. What is the most transformational story of your life? I'm going to give you 4 minutes and make sure everybody speaks for 2 minutes, so give time to somebody else too, all right? I'll let you know when the 4 minutes is up. Go. How many of you heard something new about someone you already knew? Ah, nice. Oh, lots of transformational stories. All right, wonderful. Thank you. At the core of my speech today, I'm going to talk about transformation. Transformation on both individual and organizational level. But before we start, I would like to raise a few questions in your mind. The first thing you should know about me is that I'm not a programmer, and I don't know anything about programming languages. I mean, having been working for a technology company for years, I've heard a word or two. Words like ifs, ands, library, and compiler. But that's as far as my knowledge goes about the programming languages. So there might be a question in your mind. So what does someone who doesn't know anything about programming languages have to say at DConf, a conference that is dedicated to a programming language? Believe me, I asked the same question of myself the day that I was invited to speak at the DConf. But then I realized that's a good thing, because I'm going to talk about D language from a completely different perspective, a perspective that you may not have considered before. The second thing you should know about me is that I'm the Director of Organizational Development at Ucora. This is also known as the Chief Ivy Officer. That raises 3 questions. What is Ivy? Who is Ucora? And what does all of this have to do with the D Language Foundation? But my story with D first. The first time I heard about D was the first time that I actually joined the Ucora team. I vividly remember that because they wouldn't stop talking about D. And they told me how important D language was to them and to the whole business. Since I was not a programmer, I really didn't know what the fuss was about. So I let it go. A couple of years later, when we were looking for an experienced programmer, I introduced somebody to the team. And after the initial talk, that person was quite surprised that Ucora had chosen D as a programming language for the softwares they were developing. He kind of judged Ucora for choosing a language that, in his words, no other programmer has heard about. He was concerned about his future. He said, what's the point of learning a language if I'm not going to use it in any other organization after Ucora? Well, valid points. That always stuck with me. He did join us and our team, and a year later, he realized why Ucora chose D. Fast forward 2022, 2023, when we reached out to the D Language Foundation to offer our support. And we started our IV organizational development workshops with them. And throughout the workshops, I could see how the DLF team was so passionate and enthusiastic about this language. They would tell me wonderful stories and how it's different from other programming languages. That's something interesting about D. When you speak to programmers who do know D language, they often tell you magical stories. Here's one of those stories. I talked to the founders of this technology company a while ago, and they told me how they got to choose the D language for their software. This company had gone through lots of ups and downs and had survived events like .com crash and 9/11 era, when most organizations were forced to lay off their entire team. But after the economy rebounded, they made a decision to make some radical changes to their business. One of the changes was shifting from an hourly service model to a software as a service model. And as the nature of the software as a service model required, they had this all-inclusive arrangement with their customers. What that meant was any system additions, system changes, meetings, phone calls would not result in fee increases. So they were compelled to increase the quality and reliability of their software while reducing the programming time and minimizing rework and bugs. But they had a big challenge. And the challenge was the programming languages they were using at the time would not allow for that to happen. Frustrated with all the overhead costs and time wasted on programming languages such as PHP and C++, they decided to dedicate a significant time of the company to researching on a more appropriate programming language replacement for their platform that they were trying to build. After careful consideration, they chose the D programming language. When we got to this part of the story, they told me something really interesting, and I'm quoting. It was a miracle that we found D. We don't know where we would be if we hadn't. The D language enabled us to free up time and resources to think and innovate. To think and innovate. Quite impressive. By the way, this story is the story of Ucora. And the people who said that are Paul and Robert Toth, who are sitting in the conference today with us. In fact, with the support of Government of Canada's Scientific Research and Experimental Development, we are working on a unique clustered computing environment combined with an AI-compatible database structure completely written in D. I really hope that during the conference you find the time to speak with Paul and Robert about their experience with D language. But when I got invited to speak at the DConf, I was so motivated to answer this question in my mind. How can D be propelled into the ranks of the most popular languages in the world? And the answer to this question is this. My intention of telling you the stories of transformation today is to talk about how the true value inherent in DLF goes beyond the language itself, and how this will unlock DLF's future. Now, to map this journey out, I will tell you 3 stories of transformation. Story of Ucora's transformation and how it's related to the D Language Foundation. Story of individuals' transformation, because organizations are nothing but people. And 3, the story of DLF's transformation, which has already begun. Ucora is a Canadian company that has been delivering information system and organization development services for over 3 decades, with customers across Canada, the United States, and internationally. Our clients range from small organizations to large Tier 1 firms, such as AXA Insurance, Ryan LLC, Deloitte, and since we're in the UK, and T is a big deal, even the Tetley T team. We developed our Surveys 1.0 workflow platform, and then its subsequent version, Surveys 2.0, about 20 years ago. And many of these systems continue to operate flawlessly, with numerous installations implemented over 10 to 20 years ago. In 2014, we developed our new proprietary custom workflow platform infrastructure called Fractivo, which serves as the backbone for our workflow platform, GamePlan Pro. And since its launch in 2014, it has been operating extraordinarily well as a mission-critical service for our customers. Now, when we look back at Ucora's and what we have accomplished, it's quite impressive for us. But this is only our resume. Let me tell you what I mean by that. During the pandemic, most organizations on the planet struggled with this phenomenon known as the Great Resignation. The idea was that most people in their organization would just leave the company, never to come back. Not knowing what to do with this problem, it led to a bigger challenge these days, the new phenomenon that is called quiet quitting. What that means is people go to work, they have a smile on their face, but inside they feel miserable, frustrated, they hate their jobs. And as they're working for this organization, they're looking for opportunity elsewhere. In order to tackle this issue, a lot of companies have been trying to optimize this hiring process. But it's not going to work because making a broken system more efficient and effective is not going to change anything. One of the broken things about this system is the resume reviews, right? They get piles of resume, go through the resumes one by one, choose a couple of them, have some interviews, and then 3 months later with 3, 4 different interviews, they hire somebody to find that somewhere between 35 to 40% of these people leave within the first 3 to 6 months. So what is the problem with the resume? The problem with the resume is that resume is people's past, not their future. Of course, a company needs to know whether somebody has the knowledge and the skill to do the job. But technically speaking, organizations are investing in people's past, not their future. This is the same story with Ucora. All the things that we have accomplished, we might be really proud, and we are really proud of the things that we have accomplished. We even drink to our accomplishments. Well, I don't drink, tea and orange juice and stuff. But we do drink to our accomplishments. But what inspires us is our future. And not just any kind of future, a grand future, right? An ideal vision of who we can become and who we want to become in the future. So despite our accomplishment, we could see that a bigger transformation was coming. Our GamePlan Pro platform had a few key features that gave us invaluable insights into the motivation and psychology of business owners, managers, and employees. Our all-inclusive contract, our all-inclusive arrangements gave us the opportunity to open doors for us to actively participate in boardroom discussions. Which gave us access to the mindset of hundreds of managers and frontline workers. With all that insight, we realized that our technical success alone did not align with our broader aspirations. We had bigger visions in mind. We aspired to transition Ucora from being a solid yet relatively small organization and propel it into global force for change. We realized that we were acquiring a deep understanding of the significance of worker motivation, what it entailed, and why it thrived in some companies but not in others. With all the insight that we gained, we realized that we wanted to transition Ucora to a global force for change. But the question was, how will we go global? We discovered that we were facing a challenge, and the challenge was that we were focused on the wrong area. We were so focused on the technical aspect of what we were doing that we had completely forgotten about the core value that Ucora had to offer to the world. We realized that our core value extended beyond our software. What set our software apart was not only the technical aspect of it, it was the mindset and the underlying principle behind the software that made all the difference for our customers, that made them successful in what they were doing. Think of an iceberg. What is visible from an iceberg is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Hence the expression, just the tip of the iceberg. Because the tip of the iceberg is not a good judgment of what's beneath that. For Ucora, the tip of the iceberg that was tangible and visible was the software. So we had to go really deep to understand what's beneath the surface. After an extensive retroactive study of our entire customer base, we realized that our fundamental value was our unique understanding of worker motivation and how that could reshape organizations' operating mindsets. So we created an organizational development model that we call Ivy. And then we started implementing it through our consulting side of the business. From that point forward, our focus became transforming the world by teaching this mindset behind our software, by teaching everybody about this methodology. So we decided to change the way the world works. This new vision changed everything for our company. It reinvigorated our existing team. It allowed us to attract new and highly motivated employees. We started acquiring customers well outside our traditional customer base. And we started positively influencing lives, both on personal and professional level. So with that in mind, we committed ourselves to establishing the educational arm within Ucora dedicated to enabling everybody understand this Ivy methodology. With that commitment, we developed our Ivy mobile application and Ivy motivational health network, both developed in D. Ucora ceased being merely a software company. We are transforming into a motivational health and productivity enterprise. The second story of transformation, individuals. Why is that important? An organization is really nothing but the group of people, collective people, who are moving towards an agreed upon direction. If the individuals within organizations don't transform, the organization will not transform. That's why the second story is important. I would like to tell you a story of someone that I worked with a while ago. Let's call him Shawn. Shawn is in his early 40s, and he lives with his wife and 2 kids in central Toronto in Canada. He works for a consulting firm as a business consultant, and he's really good at what he does. But there's something interesting about Shawn. He has changed 4 jobs within the last 5 years. One day he goes to his wife and says, "This company I'm working with, they don't give me that motivation and excitement and fulfillment that I've been looking for. I'm really miserable, I'm frustrated, I really think that I need to find some other job elsewhere." Frustrated with this pattern of Shawn, his wife replies, "I'm really sick and tired of you constantly complaining about your job. You think going from one company to another company is going to solve anything? That's not going to happen. The next company is just going to be like the other 5 companies, 4 companies. You either find something for this as a problem that you have, or this is not going to work anymore." What did Shawn lack and didn't understand that put him and caused him this predicament even with his personal relationship? To answer this question, let's do a mental exercise. Imagine that you had a magical toolbox, a toolbox that you could find anything you wanted in it, a hammer, screwdriver, you name it. Suppose I come to you and say, "Can you please make me something?" Which tool would you use? The first question that you might ask, actually, that's the fundamental question, is, what am I making for you? Because knowing what you're making determines what tools you want to use. That's exactly what happens in our lives as well. Oftentimes, we get so fixated on gathering tools in our toolbox, like education, skill, knowledge, jobs, that we forget to stop to ask ourselves, what am I making of myself? This fundamental question. Back to Shawn. What Shawn missed and lacked was the answer to this question. He didn't stop to ask himself, what am I making of myself? Therefore, what kind of a job as a tool is going to help me get there? He mistakenly thought that there was this job out there in some company that would give him that excitement and motivation that he's been looking for. This is where Ivy comes in. Ivy stands for Ideal Vision of Yourself. It's that ideal vision of who you want to become in the future. The person you're most proud of, you respect the most, you love the most. And it's an ideal vision. Why? Think of it this way. If I told you that Anything you ever wanted in your life, I could make it happen right now, right here. Being a car, a vacation, a partner. What kind of a car, vacation, or partner would you choose? Probably the best of the best. Why? Because you're inspired by greatness. People are not inspired by tiny things. So you probably want to have the best car, or the best vacation, or the best kind of a partner you can imagine. That's why it's so important to think about an ideal vision of who you want to become in the future that inspires you to move forward against all odds. But what's important about Ivy is we need to kind of make it more tangible. So it's not just something in our head. So we can articulate it and also share it with other people so they can also know where we are moving towards to help us. Therefore, we have something we call Ivy statement. An Ivy statement consists of 3 parts that answer to 3 important questions. Question 1, who? Who do you want to become? And that statement begins with to become. Question 2 is, how do you want to move towards that person? It starts with by. Third question, why do you want to be that person? And it starts with so that I. You put these 3 together and you have your Ivy statement. Let me show you an example of an Ivy statement. To become a captivating storyteller of life-altering ideas by actively engaging in activities such as teaching, speaking, and acting, so that I have an impactful, positive role in changing the way the world works. As you might imagine, this is my Ivy statement, actually. Now, with this Ivy statement, I exactly know where I'm moving towards in my life. So when an opportunity comes in, and it's helping me move towards that, then I'll take it. But if it's not moving me towards that, I can drop it. It's just a distraction. So it makes it easier for me to make important decisions in my life. Also, I can share it with other people. So they also know, especially in my organization, right? So everybody knows where I'm moving towards, so they can also help me. In fact, this is exactly how I got invited to DConf. It was during one of the workshops with the DLF team that we were talking about Ivy statement, and they were trying to write their own Ivy statements. Then they asked me to share my Ivy statement, and I did. And that started an interesting conversation. They asked me a few questions about my Ivy statement. And then Mike said, well, it seems like based on your Ivy statement, giving a speech would be aligned with who you want to become. And I said, yes. And then he said, would you like to be a keynote speaker at the DConf this year? To which I believe I said, hell yes, if I'm not mistaken. That's an opportunity. So sharing, if I hadn't shared my Ivy statement, this might not ever happen, and this opportunity would not have happened for me to deliver this message. Now, once you have an Ivy statement, once people get together, individuals with their own Ivy moving towards who they want to become, they make collective teams, and they become organizations. Ivy also applies within organizations. In fact, organizations have their own Ivy statement. Why? Because organizations also want to become something. And then collective of people decide what that is. Once an organization knows where it's moving towards, it makes it very clear to articulate it to the world and to everybody else. This is where we are moving towards, and this is who we want to become. A wonderful way of illustrating this point is in the story of Alice in Wonderland. If you remember, when Alice goes to the forest, she feels lost at first. She's walking around, she doesn't know where she's going. And then she sees this cat, and this is the dialogue that happens between them. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to walk from here? Said Alice. That depends a good deal on where you want to go to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you walk, said the cat. This beautifully illustrates the fact that if we don't know where we are moving towards, then it doesn't matter where we go. In other words, if we don't know where we are moving towards, we're not moving towards anything. Stephen Covey, in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, also has an interesting story. He talks about the story of a group of workers who go to a forest to cut trees. They have this manager who makes sure that everybody has all the tools they need, and then puts them into teams and asks them to start cutting trees, and they do. But one of the workers climbs up the tallest tree in the forest and looks around really carefully, and then shouts down, Wrong forest. If an organization doesn't know where it's moving towards, how can it know whether it's in the right or wrong forest? All they know, they're cutting trees, for sure. But are they cutting the right trees? Maybe not. They might be engaged in the activities that they're doing, but is it taking them somewhere? Are they accomplishing what they need to? Maybe not. So once the organization knows where it's moving towards and it has established that vision, then it's time for them to align everybody within the organization, all the stakeholders. Think of it this way. When you get on a bus, you see other passengers on the bus as well. You may not be sharing the same destination with people on the bus, but as long as you are on the bus, you are sharing the same direction. An organization is like a bus. This is what we call IV alignment. IV alignment means finding people whose IV is moving them towards the same direction, even for a short period of time. Why? Because when that happens, that means that an organization is providing the opportunity and the environment for people to move towards who they want to become, which inspires them and motivates them, and for people who helping the organization move towards what it wants to become. It's a win-win situation. The third story of transformation, DLF's transformation. Remember the iceberg? What's visible and tangible for DLF as the tip of the iceberg is the language itself. But there is something much deeper than that. When you go deep enough, you can understand that. Just as Ucora's core value extended beyond software platform and was in the motivational mindset behind the software, DLF's core value and mindset goes beyond the language itself. DLF's core value resides not solely in the language, but in the very mindset that the language embodies. D is a byproduct of DLF's mindset. D did not create that mindset. DLF's transformation has already begun. And for DLF to flourish, it has to transform in two different levels, individually and collectively, or as an organization. On an individual level, DLF is trying to find the alignment between its IV, what it wants to become, and the IV of its stakeholders, including the contributors and the customers. But it doesn't limit to just contributors and customers, any stakeholders. It's that sweet spot in the middle that ensures that everybody is motivated and excited and are moving towards what they want to become, and the organization is moving towards what it wants to become. On an organizational level, DLF recognized the significance of how IV can align all stakeholders in common direction. Through the 15 sessions of the workshops that we had, they spent a lot of time and energy finding that IV statement of who they want to become, both personally, individually, and collectively as an organization. I will leave that to Michael and Walter to tell you what DLF's IV is, as I really don't want to steal their thunder. I urge each and every one of you to find your IV. Find that ideal vision of who you want to become in the future. A truly transformational IV is not just some traditional vision writing where you sit for 5 minutes to understand where you want to be in 5 years. It's deep work, and it takes time, but it's well worth it. For those of you who are interested in finding their IV statement and write it down, I invite you to join us on Friday at the workshops that we have. Michael and I will be there, and I will personally help you and coach you to write your IV statement, to find who you want to become and discover that. And by the way, it's already within you. It has never been without you. So I look forward to meeting you on Friday. Once you discover that IV and internalize the principles behind IV, you can use this mindset in all aspects of your life. In your relationship with DLF, in your relationship with other organizations, and in your personal, even in your personal relationships. Everyone is attracted to people who have passion and direction. And everyone is attracted to organizations with passion and direction. Combine the two, and there's nothing you cannot accomplish together. Thank you. have 8 minutes left. So.
It is now questions time. Now, I should mention for people on the stream that I am monitoring both the YouTube chat and Discord. But let's start with an audience question. Over there, Laith.
Thank you for a very stimulating and thought-provoking talk. To what extent is the statement I guess it's something that one might have being a bit older, but to what extent is the statement tentative, a work in progress, something that's unfolding and being refined as you discover more about what's inside?
If I understand your question correctly, you mean how static or dynamic it is?
Yeah, and accepting that it is something that might intrinsically be refined over time.
Well, and Ivy is quite dynamic. Who you want to become changes all the time. And as you move forward, you kind of learn more things about yourself. Because when you move towards a certain direction, new opportunities come in, and then you understand yourself better, and therefore you write a different Ivy statement. Actually, this Ivy statement that I showed you is my 7th edition. The one that I showed at the DConf was not this one, it was a different one. But it doesn't radically change. It's not like one day I wake up in the morning, I completely want to be a different person. It's usually my experience is that new editions are kind of get more narrowed down and more specific as what exactly you want to become. But it does change. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool.
I wanted to briefly ask about how do you make use of the right level of abstraction of an IV statement? So in your own personal statement, the end goal was to make a difference, but to make a difference in the world, there's many ways of doing it. It might be by directly helping people as a doctor or a teacher might, or it might be by inventing a new technology. And of course, there's 1,000 areas in which one focuses. And what you need depends on the company you're in, et cetera. So how do you pick the right level of detail when creating a IV statement?
That's a good question. The big distinction, I would like to give you a distinction. The big distinction between IV and goals, they're completely different things. A goal is something that you set, and usually it's time-bound, right? This is what I want to accomplish within this period of time. And once you accomplish that, then you go to the next goal, and the next goal, and the next goal, right? IV has the nature of a vision of who you want to become. There is no place, like my IV statement, if I go back, so there is no point in time that I can say, oh, I accomplished this, I'm done, right? I can always be a storyteller. I just choose different tools to get there. I identified my tools here, right? I say by teaching, speaking, acting, podcasting, YouTubing, you name it. Jobs are just tools. Tools to help us move towards the person we want to become. Now, because it has that nature of vision, I wouldn't say it's either specific or not specific. It's usually kind of broad. Like I say, I want to become a captivating storyteller, right? Of life-altering ideas. Now, when I go to an organization and I say that, what are they going to do about it? Well, let's say just at Ucora, what happens is, oh, actually, we have this idea. We want to promote this idea. Let's create it. Let's work on it because it's all stories. To me, all of these are stories, right? Now, how do I apply it? Well, I'm a coach. I'm an executive coach. I work for organizations. That's another way of telling stories. I teach, that's another way of telling stories. I speak, that's another way of telling stories. So something that's beautiful about Ivy's statement and Ivy is that it doesn't limit you to one job or career, right? You are free to take on any job that you can. Of course, you have to have the knowledge and the skills, and you need to learn things along the way. But as long as what you do is moving you towards that person, you're fulfilled, because that's not a goal, right? That's just a direction. Does that make sense? So when they say you're moving towards north, then it's hard to say whether how specific or general. Well, I'm just moving towards north. right? You can be as specific as you want in the buy statement to show exactly what tools you would like to use, right? And what tools you don't want to use, that's fine. But that to become statement is quite broad. Did I answer your question?
What would you say to somebody who looks at this and goes, I don't really care, it's not about me, it's not about my identity, it's just about what I get done. So it seems to me that this has this sort of, the core of this is somebody describing who they want to be, and it's sort of got this sort of reflexive thing, looking back on yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody might say, I don't care, right? Like it's not about me, I'm not important, it's just about what I do.
Very good question. And I assume that person is like some business owner or manager, right?
Well, it could be, I mean, I feel like I'm 50% of the way to that.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean, yeah. It's a very good question. Let's say I come to you and we have this discussion and we want to do something together, right? And then I tell you, this is who I want to become. And you say, well, I don't care, right? How are you going to motivate me? How are you going to ensure that what I do is I'm putting all my energy and time and really kind of work through it to make it happen? Because if it's just a job for me, well, I'm going to show you the smile.
I actually mean with myself, say. So if with myself going, I don't care who I'm not.
Oh, you say to yourself.
I'm painting a caricature, right? But I don't care who I'm going to become.
Why not?
I just care about what I'm trying to do. I care about what happens out there in the world, not about who this thing becomes. That's not necessarily what I really believe.
You and I need to talk on Friday. Believe me, because I want to ask you more questions to get there, but I'm not sure if you're comfortable answering those questions in front of everybody.
If you want to, you can go ahead.
Well, the first question I would ask is, why don't you care who you want to become?
It's not that I don't care, it's that the goals, the motivation is to do with seeing the change in the world.
And that's who you want to become, isn't that so?
I am instrumental, not...
Then maybe that's who you want to become. You want to be an instrument of change in the world.
It's fair enough, but first things first, it's the thing out there, not me.
Why not?
Don't know.
Let's talk on Friday. Are you going to be here on Friday?
Yeah, I should be. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you, okay?
Saeed.
Yes, Ali.
Thank you very much for a great talk.
My pleasure.
I'm going to ask you whether it's a common question to question the ego in this statement. Is I want to become a Western invention? Is this a common question that you face?
What do we do with ego?
Because this puts the ego up front, saying you want to become, I want to become.
Okay,
but
yeah,
it's
fair enough.
claimed that there are some cultures out there that want to suppress the ego.
Yeah.
Is this a common question? If so,
oh, it is.
Answer. Yes.
Oh, actually, it is. Thank you so much. One of the principles of Ivy is that, I'm going to say it, but don't get angry, is that everybody is selfish. Not in a bad way, in a good way. I want what I want in my life, right? And I want to see that's happening because that's the potential I have, and I want to see that potential throughout the world, right? To bring up goods and everything. So that part of self is actually a positive thing. Ego, when it comes negative, is I want everything to myself and nobody else. The principles, another principle behind Ivy is that I have an Ivy and I want to become somebody, but so does everybody else. Ali wants to become someone, and I should care about that if I want to see you motivated and work towards what we are working towards together. Otherwise, I'm just bossing you around and I'm just commanding and controlling, right? Command and control doesn't go anywhere, and I think we all know that. So the only thing for me is to accept that Ali, selfishly, in a positive way, wants to move towards something that he wants. I better recognize it, and I better work with it, because otherwise he's not going to be motivated. If I put him in a situation that is opposite of who he wants to become, he sees the whole situation pointless. What's the point? Why am I doing all these things? I'm not getting anything out of this. Okay, so you're giving me money? Okay, I'll work for your money, but I'm looking for something else, right? But deep inside, Ivy, I would say, doesn't contradict the other philosophies that talk about like being egoless, right? So for example, someone like Eckhart Tolle How many of you know Eckhart Tolle? Have you read his book, right? Okay. So he suggests the idea of don't live in the future or past, live in the present, live in the moment. That's where life is, right? And one of the questions that I get is that that's completely opposite of what I'm talking about. But it's not, because living in the moment and planning for the future are completely different things. You think about future of who you want to become because you need to have direction in life. Not having a direction is Alice in Wonderland. If you don't care where you're going, you're not going anywhere. But then once you choose that direction, then you take your steps in the present. Now you're in the present, you accept everything that happens right now in life, and you move forward, but you have a direction. So it's not living in the future. Ivy doesn't mean you have to live in the future and start daydreaming every day all the time. And it's not that, have you heard The Secret? It was like a documentary a while ago, a book, the law of attraction and all of that. And it's not that either, just put like a check with the $1 million on your ceiling every night and just look at it and then you're gonna get $1 million someday. It has nothing to do with that. It's just all about find that direction that you're moving towards in your life, define how you want to move towards it, and ask yourself, why do I even want to move towards that? Share it with other people. Of course, share it with people you trust. I mean, you don't have to share it with everyone. I'm comfortable, I share it with everybody. But then so they know what motivates you and what demotivates you. That's important. Because if they know what demotivates you, then if they put you in a situation that demotivates you, then they're not going to say, oh, this guy is demotivated. Well, you put that person in that situation. It makes it very clear where I'm moving towards. And if the company I'm working with, if my partner, does something or puts me in a situation that's opposite of this, well, at least she expects me to be demotivated, right? Did I answer your question, Ali? Yeah? Okay.
Cool, and that's all the time we have for questions now. So thank you, Saeed.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And as